The holiday we went through Europe, primarily the UK and a little bit of France, but mostly UK and Italy. And we really explored London thoroughly, the Cotswolds, the little countryside, very interesting town called Bath in the UK, and then Rome in Italy, and the island of Sardinia, not the little island, the big island of Sardinia. But if you ask a question in terms of what did I learn about property or see insights from property from looking at those countries, first of all, the architecture is amazing. So, that historic architecture. Rome is a place I've been there a few times before, and it's just whether you want to call it romantic or whatever, it's just got a soul. It's incredible. And it's it's nothing strange with a restaurant or a little apartment or a little hotel sitting in a building that's over 1,000 years old, which is incredible that it's still there. And walking around seeing all of that, it's amazing. And then the UK is the same thing. The UK, London specifically, is a lot more modern. There's constant upgrades over the years been done, and it's very clean and very impressive. But one thing of both jurisdictions that was interesting to me and that opened my eyes a bit was to look at why they designed stuff the way they did. And it's out of necessity. Here and there's things where people want to impress one another, and incredible palaces or incredible churches and things. But overall, they build things that have out of necessity and about what's locally available, and also what lasts a long time. So that was quite interesting. The thing of using stone and stone facades, maybe not for an entire building, but using stone facades or stone cladding on the bottom part of the building, and then using a lot of bricks, exposed face bricks. Now, I'm somebody who my whole life has been against face brick. I don't know, it's because I come from the West Rand in Johannesburg, where there's a hell of a lot of face brick, and it's most of the time it's not used very nicely. I've, since I was a child, got put off of face brick. But it's interesting now that, and I promised myself that whenever I would do a development, I would never use face brick. But I've changed my thinking about it. Just thinking from owning a property that's face brick, repainting and fixing up properties that are plaster with paint, it's a lot of money. And if you're going to own a property indefinitely or for the long term as an investment property, a rental property, you don't want that maintenance. So it's a big cost. So using materials and things that are locally available, so driven by local prices, and to make it as cheap or as affordable as possible, and then take into consideration things that will last forever, or long lifespan. So that was something that in both countries they use extensively. So that was quite interesting. And then the concept of, retail on the ground floor, and living above it, and small streets, the 15-minute city, And I think that needs to come back. The problem we have in South Africa is we're a country where people drive everywhere. We don't have and it's an issue. We shouldn't be like that. We should be walking around. Small little shops, small little grocery store, small little restaurant, and many of them. That gives you such a big variety, which is already incredible. It stops just franchises all being all over the place, and people walking around, having a sense of community, knowing who your neighbor is, seeing each other at the coffee shops and things like that. That's what's awesome. So I really like that old school design. So looking into the design of these piazzas and really the city centers. It's only for places that's in the city itself. When you go to the outlying areas, it's a different design. But I think it really works, and I think there's a large space for that in South Africa. But you have to adapt it, and we see it now with some of these estates are doing it. Very large private estates are doing it. But security is the main thing. You need to have safe streets, and crime needs to be taken care of, and that can change everything. If you look at a place like Cape Town, long street in Cape Town. It's not a safe space, but it can be, and all that needs to happen is local government needs to up the security. And also, I guess, in South Africa, we can't rely on local government. It needs to be the property and business owners need to club together and put money together and make it secure. But then we have these spaces. They were designed in the past, and they've, because of the crime rates that have gone up. I don't even want to talk about Joburg and all the other cities, but we have these cities that are standing there, that are going backwards, and we're all moving to the suburbs or developing land out in the suburbs, which is nothing wrong with that. We've got a population growth, but these cities need to be reused and revitalized, and it's important. So yeah, those are the two things, sustainable design, not necessarily eco-friendly, all of this nonsense. I think people try and, build things out of materials and all these new materials that whenever you ask somebody, how can we make it more efficient or cheaper, they try and come up with some 3D printed building and stuff like that. That doesn't necessarily work. That's not necessarily cheaper depending on the country where you are. We've got a country where labor is fairly cheap, so that's not really it. But using local materials, if you're in an area like Plettenberg Bay, using pine, which is a local wood, which we've always used in all of our developments. And people don't know that it's pine, they think it's some imported wood. And making use of those things and not getting pulled into this whole design fad of what's the latest, greatest thing to do. I think that's important. Yeah, and then designing holistically, designing something where, the guy can live, work and play within a small area, within a small radius, let's say. And bringing a sense of community back. I think that's very important.